Hello, traveler of worlds, and welcome to the Traveler's Canvas series. This series is all about bringing some color to our emotional worlds, to our inner landscapes. And if you're new here, IMOVARA is an emotional universe where we feel and create and we grow together, where we focus on healing our inner child and caring for our nervous system. And yeah, this specific practice right here is real time, so I will be guiding you along for the entire little piece. You can also use these videos as like just a cozy little artsy chat in the background. There will be no music, it's very calm, it's very peaceful. It is also very beginner friendly, so don't be afraid to give this a try. And yeah, let's grab our supplies and let's get started. Today we are once again traveling to the world of quiet and calm. I'm saying once again because in my other Traveler's Canvas videos we also travel to the world of quiet and calm, and that is because we are still in full winter mode. Or maybe if you live in Australia you are not in a winter mode, but like I'm in a winter mode. So I'm just like creating my videos from that perspective. We are covered in snow, and I know that for the next 2 months we will still live in the cold, we will live in the dark. And I'm not the kind of person who just like after New Year's just gets up and like becomes awake again. Absolutely not. I know I will be staying in my resting phase, my hibernation, my couch potato phase for at least another solid 2 months. And so this cute little painting that we're doing today is inspired by the couch potato mode. The painting is just a simple, cute little cottage in the middle of the woods with a lot of snow, with pretty little trees and a lot of light. Now, an important note regarding the sketch. In a moment, I will be putting the sketch on the screen, a very simplified version that you can free draw. Just pause the video and then try to copy it as best as you can. Regarding the colors, I will be using some browns, mainly browns, and some black and some white to create different grayscales. Maybe a little bit of green and a little bit of blue. Now, I don't know yet specifically which colors I will be using, so if you want to know specifically the colors that I'm using, check the description, I will list it there. And yeah, I think that's all the information you need for now. I will just be chatting along about God knows what. That usually happens when I paint. So I will just be chatting with you and guiding you along. This might take an hour and a half, if I'm not too slow. I have my colors, I have my water, I have my brushes. I am working with, let's see, I have chosen 3 different brushes. You can do this with just one brush. If you have a beautiful brush with a round tip, that works very, very well. I chose this big one here just to be able to cover my page a bit quicker. And then I have a small one for the details. But if you have, like if you only have one brush and it's around the 6 to 8 size, you are settled. You really don't need a lot of brushes. I just like having them because I have them, so I have a lot to choose from, but it's absolutely not necessary. I also have this big one for when I want to cover my entire page with water, but also, again, you don't need it. And yeah, I think it's time to fix our little puddles here. I will move my perspective to my hands and the things that I do here on the table. And let's have some fun. Let's paint a cute little painting. Let's have a bit of fun together and see where this takes us, shall we? So let's mix some colors. I'm just grabbing a bit of paper here. And I'm moving this microphone so that we can get some paint ASMR. Shall I say that? There we go. So I would say my main color is going to be a warm brown. So I'm just gonna take some of that. Start making a little puddle. This is not, I don't remember the name of this. It's the opposite of burnt sienna. You have another sienna. I can't for the life of me think of what that sienna is. But this is not the burnt sienna, it's the warmer kind of sienna. And I think this will be my primary color alongside gray. So I'm just gonna make a very faint, I always start with very, very light layers. So just make sure that you get this very watery consistency when you make your puddles. very faint. We don't want a lot of it. Got a little puddle there. Then I will take some yellow and make a puddle with my yellow. We will use a lot of yellow for our base layer because I just want this to be a very warm and cozy little painting. And so your base layer, so the color that you choose to put below all the other colors, drastically decides what kind of atmosphere you create. So for example, if we use yellow, all the colors that come above it, all the layers that come after will all have this slight yellow tint to it. Whilst if you were to use blue, you would get a much cooler painting. Maybe you would get more like a spooky, creepy forest. Now I don't want that. I want the cozy kind. I want the cozy forest, warm colors, cozy little cottage, beautiful little trees. So I think I'm just starting out with my yellow and with my burnt sienna. No, not burnt sienna, the other kind of sienna. And then I want to show you, because we're also going to be using quite a bit of gray. So for now, I'm just going to show you that here. I have a black. I think this is black pearl or just a very, very dark black. The kind of black doesn't matter at this point because we're going to give it a hue on our own. So to make this warm gray, I want a warm gray. So I'm just going to take a bit of white and a bit of black. And first just get a very neutral gray. There we go. I would say that's quite a neutral gray. Now I want this gray to have a slightly warmer tint. So I'm going to be taking my burnt sienna this time, just a tiny bit of brown. You know what? It doesn't really matter if it's burnt sienna or the other sienna. Just a bit of brown. Now this is too much brown because now my gray looks brown. But it's these three colors that I use. Oh, that's also brown. We're off to a good start. You know what? Let me just do like this. Let's start over. It's completely okay if you have to start over. If you're not happy with the colors that you have, if things turn out a bit differently, just start over. Let's see, I was using this. Okay, back to it. We got our black. Got our black. Gonna take my white, make it all neutral gray, like so. And then gonna take my burnt sienna, just a tiny bit, because I was taking too much, and mix that in. Maybe it's hard to see on camera, but my gray instantly gets warmer. And this is also a beautiful way. You can use a neutral gray, or you can use black, or you can use white to make it more bland, to take out the vibrancy of your brown. So in this case, I want my gray to be more vibrant. But if I wanted to make my brown less vibrant, I would add in either a bit of white if I wanted a light brown, or add in a bit of black just to take out the vibrancy of a dark brown. So here I got a warm brown. It's not a very big puddle, but this was just to show you. And then we have the option of making a cool gray. So I want a warm gray and I want a cool gray for this painting. So we go back to the black, add in a bit of white, making it neutral gray. And then instead of the brown, I am going to be adding in a little bit of blue. Just a tiny bit, like so. This was already too much, but I think you got the point. You can see it a little bit. These are now two very different grays, but they're still in like the gray area. So black and white to make it gray, add in a bit of brown to make it warm, add in a bit of blue to make it cooler. So there we have that. But for now, we're just working with yellows. So what I invite you to do to start out with is, if you have a big brush, just cover your entire painting with water. Just make it all wet. You don't want too much water. You don't want it to be dripping off the page, but just make it moist, as if you were moisturizing your face, but instead of your face, it's the page. You're starting with something called a wet on wet technique. meaning that we have our wet paint going on a wet page, which then means that our paint will just beautifully float over wherever we put it. And yes, it also kind of removes our control because the paint just goes wherever you'd like it to go. But that is the beautiful part, and the thing I invite you to embrace with watercolor is that it has a mind of its own. It likes to do whatever it likes to do, so we can like encourage it to go in certain places and do certain things. But at the end of the day, the paint does whatever it wants. And so if you have, like Barbara says, happy little accidents, things looking different than you'd hoped, try to see it as just a beautiful little cooperation with you and the paint, and just saying like, oh, this is the paint wanted this, so this is not my fault. I'm just doing what the paint guides me to do. So what we're going to start out with is, you see our little cottage here, and we have a little lantern there, and I'm thinking this is like a light gray, sunnyish kind of day. So it's not blue skies, it is gray, but you can kind of faintly see the sunlight in between the trees in the sky. So the places that we're going to start with our yellow is in the areas where we know that the cottage has windows and where the sun might be shining through the sky, and a little lantern. So the most important part is that you don't want to make it yellow exactly in the lightest point. So the lightest point of, for example, the window, try to avoid getting paint in that. Rather, take your brush and brush the yellow around the window. You can have a little bit of dots here and there, but try to keep the window itself in here as wide as possible. This indicates that the light is actually coming from the window. That is like our light source here. And do not stress again if the yellow goes in places where you didn't want it to. This is also just the very first layer. You will not be seeing this yellow anymore afterwards. Oh. So just feel free as you gently just dab into the yellow color around your windows. Start with that, around your windows, but not inside the windows. Gently around it. The lightest point is the widest point. Not sure if that makes sense, but so I'm doing the same with my lantern here, keeping spots white, indicating that the spots where it's white, that is lighter than the spot where you see yellow. You can also gently think about, okay, we have light coming from this cottage and we have some trees in the background here. So maybe some of the light from the cottage just gently brushes or kisses the branches of the trees. You might add in just a little bit of loop in case you want to emphasize the light later on. Now you can think here that we have our cottage here, right? And this is a tree. And this part of the tree is pointing kind of towards the cottage. But the other side of the tree is pointing towards the dark forest. So that tells us already that we should probably not put a lot of yellow on the other side, on the shadow side, because there is no light source here. This part is going towards the dark, moody woods. So this, we won't put any yellow here. No highlights, no yellow, no nothing. But the part of the tree that points toward the cottage can definitely have some yellow on it. As can this tree on the other side, because we have a window here, right? And it points towards this side of this tree. But this part of that tree, the other side, is again pointing towards the moody, dark woods. So we won't put any yellow there. And then we have some in the background here. And just play around simply with the color yellow. Add it wherever you think the light is hitting. Again, if you feel like you've put it in the wrong place, no problem. You can always paint over it later. Now, another funny thing is regarding snow, because we think that when we see snow, it's white, right? When you think of snow, you think it's white. But the thing about snow is that it's more reflective than anything else. It consumes and it reflects the colors that's around it. So if you actually start noticing snow, you will see that it has the colors of its surroundings. So if I were to look out my window now, my snow is more like a violet or a blue, or cold blue, or a blue-gray, because the skies are blue, but it's getting dark. And so when you think of snow, or white areas in general, white areas are usually never white. They just reflect the colors that they are surrounded by. Which means that I can add a little bit of yellow on my snow, wherever I think it might be fitting. All of this is snow, everything on the ground is snow, but that does not mean that we're going to make it white. But do keep the white spots open so that we can create some beautiful contrast later on. Just dab in a few yellow spots here and there, but also keep the white as best you can, because our snow will be just a beautiful mix of different colors. There we go. And then, of course, we mustn't forget our sky. And my paint is drying, so I'm just going to take another layer of water and dab that on, because I don't... When you paint wet on wet, like I said, the paint will just spread beautifully on the page. But if you do wet on dry, the paint will stay where you put it. So if you then make a line, if you make a wet paint line on a dry piece of paper, that line will be the way that you made it. It's kind of confined on the page because it has no water to mix with. But I don't want that for my sky. I want my sky to have a little bit of yellow. I imagine like that maybe the sun is behind here, behind the rooftop of my little cottage. So I'm just gently adding that in. There we go. I think my sun is about here, so I'm keeping this slightly wider than everything else, just to indicate that this is the brightest spot in the sky. There we go. Like so. And there we have some beautiful yellow. We have started with a beautiful yellow. Now what you can do, and if your paint is still, or if your paper is still dry, no, if your paper is still wet, you can make a bit of a darker puddle of yellow. So use the same yellow, but make the consistency a tiny bit thicker than the ones before. Because the point is, if you now were to go with an equally thin puddle over the wet paint that you still have here, it will start to bloom, meaning it will start giving you these weird, it looks kind of like broccoli, or like it looks like funky little flowers. And it's beautiful, but it's not beautiful when you don't intend to have it there. But the trick here is that if your puddle is a little bit denser in pigment than it was with this previous layer, and your paper is still wet, it will mix beautifully. And you can start building up these beautiful layers. So that's what I'm doing now. I have a little bit of a denser color. I might even, you can see this, but if you have a bit of red, or if you have a bit of orange on your palette, just gently dip your brush in it, just a little bit, and add it into your yellow, just to deepen that yellow, make it warmer, make it comfortable, make it feel like a hug. Now this is not a color that you see very often in the sky, so use this very dark, beautiful yellow, orangey color. Use it just for around like the windows and your light sources on the ground. So yeah, the windows, add it to the windows, around the windows, keep the center of the windows light. But around the windows, you can make it a little bit darker. Just tap it in, just have fun, just see how it moves and how it flows. Maybe your paint isn't moving as naturally anymore because your page is drying up. If you don't like the way that it flows, or if it doesn't flow as well anymore, you have the option of letting your layer dry. That's the only way for you really to be able to go in and wet the page again. Do not go over it with water. Not yet, because then you will take the pigment that you already have on it. Then the beautiful work that you've already done will disappear. So use a hairdryer, or just let your page rest close to a heat source. I see now that my page is drying up as well. Just dabbing in a little bit more, but I think it's about time for me to properly dry my page. And there we go. And there we have our first little layer. Take your time. If you feel like I'm going too fast, pause the video. If you feel like I'm going too slow, you can always speed up the video. Do this at the tempo that feels good to you. But just try to remember that this time right here is for you to feel at peace and bring color to your inner world. I also forgot to say that if you like the sketch, but maybe you don't like the colors I'm choosing, feel free to just go on over it with a completely different color palette than I have. Or maybe you like my color palette, but you don't like the sketch itself, and you can alter it any way that you want. Just use this little painting session and this little painting right here as an opportunity to be inspired to bring color to your own world of calm and quiet. You can make it exactly how you want, as simple or as detailed as you want. I highly encourage you to just play around, let the colors do its thing. Maybe you don't even want to use watercolor. Maybe you want to use oils or acrylics. Just feel free. This is first and foremost for you to find some peace in the present and just have some fun with creativity. So use the mediums, use the skills, use the brushes, use the things that encourage you to feel that. I'm just going to go now and get my hairdryer and dry this layer, and then I'll be back. I have now dried my layer. So you have two options here. Maybe you felt like you were a little bit too gentle with your yellow. Maybe you wanted to be more vibrant. Then you have the option to just do the same process all over again. Just wet your page entirely, dab in the yellow where you want to have it, and just play around with it. Have fun. I am happy with the amount of yellow that I have. Now the point, an important point here too, is that I really like my watercolor paintings to be very contrasty. I like to have a lot of depth. I like to have a lot of highlights and shadows and have a lot of vibrancy in them. But again, this painting is supposed to also represent your inner world, your inner quiet and calm world. So if you want it to be less vibrant, by all means, don't use the intensity of the colors that I do. Maybe you skip one of the colors. Maybe you don't even use yellow at all if you just want it to be more neutral, more more pastel-like, these kind of things. Again, just adjust everything in accordance to what feels right to your quiet and calm inner world. We are not supposed to be making similar paintings here. We are painting each individually for ourselves. So if you can, try to keep that in mind. Don't get too caught up in, oh, this doesn't look like hers, or oh, I should have been doing that, or oh, this should have looked like this. No, this is your world. This is your place. It can look exactly how you want it to, and I just highly encourage you to make it look different than mine in general. That being said, we will now start with one of our grays. So when you feel ready, activate or start making the puddle that has a warm gray. We're going to be working with the sky now. We're going to be working with our snow just to indicate where that's at. So I'm just going to be making my warm gray puddle a little bigger and adding in a little bit more pigment of everything. It's really fascinating. Like I remember before I started painting, just how I was so thinking like, oh, snow is white. Look how beautiful and white it is. And then I entered the artist world and I started learning about color and how color is so different than we think, and how it looks so different with everything, and how it reflects off of things. And it's just a wonderful, beautiful, magical world that you could never believe existed if you weren't interested in artsy stuff. So I would encourage you next time you go out and, for example, see snow, have like a real look at it. Are you able to identify what kind of colors it's reflecting? Oh, Bam Bam encourages you to do the same. But yeah, when you go out, you go on a walk, you go into nature, or you go into the city, or you go someplace, start looking at the colors around you and the variety that is there. It's absolutely incredible. Brown isn't just brown. Blue isn't just blue. Blue can be a mix of green and yellow and purple. And it's just, or brown can be more of like a yellow that looks like a light green and like that. It's really, really fascinating. And it's really fun too. It becomes like a, in Dutch we say zoekplaatje. What should I call that in English? Like, it becomes a picture, it becomes like a game. You start looking for things, you gamify becoming into the present, because I think the main thing that it does is that you become more present, because you become so hyper aware of everything that's around you, and seeing the colors and hearing the noises and smelling the things. Like, that's what grounds you in the present. So yeah, zoekplaatje. Maybe I should look that up. Wait. This is now I'm curious. This is completely off topic. Let me just have a look what that is. In the meantime, feel free to make your puddle. Zoekplaatje in English. Well, like the direct the direct translation is search picture, but I don't think that's not a very good translation, is it? Okay, so no human translation has been found for the word zoekplaatje. If anyone knows the word zoekplaatje in English, will you please share that in the comments, because now I'm very curious. But it's like you just have a picture and you're looking after, you're like searching for something specific, and it just really grounds you in the moment. Anyway, that's completely off topic. If you have your warm puddle of gray, we're now going to add some clean water to the sky. We're still going to be working with the wet on wet technique, but now try to avoid the trees. You can overlap it a little bit on the trees, since we're still working with very light layers, but we don't intend for the trees to become gray. So just dab it in the sky, and like maybe a little bit on the tips of the trees, but not the entire page this time. Also avoid the cottage. We're not going to be making the cottage gray. So just add water to the places where the sky is and the place where we know there's snow. Avoid the trees, avoid the lanterns. Just the ground. Just working with the ground and with the sky now. And we're going to be using our warm gray puddle. Just going to be adding the water. Here we go. Making it thoroughly moist, but not too wet. There we go. Like so. I'm going to go back in with my brush. I want that to be a little bit more gray. It's too brown now for me, so I'm just going to add in a bit more black to gray that out. Maybe I also want it to be a little bit on the green side. That's the fun thing, like we're still working with gray, but I can add a tint of green, and then it becomes a green gray, a warm green gray. If you just add tiny amounts, you can do so much with just the grays. I think that's nice. So what I'm doing now is I still have a very light puddle, and I'm just going to tap it in. Just gently add in this gray into my sky, indicating where my sky is. And the fun thing now is that you can see my yellow beneath it, right? So it warms up my sky because I started with my yellow. If you get a little bit on your rooftop or on the trees, that's absolutely not a problem. This is such a light layer anyway. Just gently dab it in. Don't be too strict with your lines or the edges. Just let the paint do what it does. You kind of know where you want it. So just dab it in. There we go. I didn't make a big enough puddle of gray. So I'm going to make some more. You have to work with a little bit of speed here just because your page is wet, right? But you now know the formula of making different kinds of grays. So you got this. And maybe you were smarter than me and made a bigger puddle, so you don't have to stress about making a new puddle whilst everything is drying up. Oop, another one. Why am I still making such a small puddle? That wasn't supposed to happen. I need a big puddle, a big puddle. That's better. A little bit of brown. Keeping it still a very watery consistency. I don't want any dark colors in here yet, but I do make sure that since I'm going into my sky again, the petal is a little bit more pigmented than the last layer, simply because I don't want my blooms in here. I don't want my sky to bloom. The grass and everything else can bloom, but not the sky. And then, let's see, I think I want to move on to my ground, but I see that it has dried up a bit too much, so I'm just gonna add a bit more water. There we go. And now I'm taking the same color and I'm just doing exactly the same thing, going over my yellow, going over my whites, but we want to preserve a little bit more of the white than we did in the sky. Just again, because we're emphasizing that this is snow. So like to trick the brain to think that it's snow, it can't be completely brown or completely gray. So keep a couple of white spots open and just dab it in on the ground. We don't have to be thinking about anything, big decisions or anything just yet. Just cover it. This is just still the base layer. We're just getting in some color so that the page doesn't feel as daunting. You know, as soon as you have some color on your page, the painting process seems a little less scary, at least to me. I'm always daunted by the white page. So I always start very, very simple, usually with just one color. But even that helps me to just come into the mood of, oh, I'm just playing around, I'm just having fun. There we go. I have some white, I have some yellow. Yeah. So what we can do now, I see that my sky is still wet. I want the top of my sky and the corners here to be a little bit darker than when it moves towards to the back here, because like this part of the sky is closer to us, whilst here, when we also have smaller trees, this below and behind the cottage is further away, and everything that moves further away becomes less contrasty and colder in color. So what we need to do now is add a little bit more density, a bit more vibrancy to the front and the top of the sky, just to feel like it is coming towards us, and that the sky behind the cottage is moving away from us. So again, I am just going to make another puddle of my gray, of my warm gray. Adding in my white. There we go. But this time I'm adding a little less white and a little bit more black. And a tiny bit of brown. This is too dark, I think, so a little bit more white. And I'm just making sure that my puddle, this time my puddle is a little denser in color. Not too much, it's still very watery, and I'm dipping off excess paint on my brush because I don't want a thick layer. And then I'm just gently going to be dapping in on the sides here. Maybe I can indicate as if there are a bit of clouds here too, just make some stripes. Just playing around with my brush on here. Dapping it in. If it feels scary to work here, just dab in a bit of darker color in the corners. The front, in the corners. And you can see I have a lot of paint on my trees, but I'm not worrying about it because I know that I will go over the trees with denser layers, more color, more pigment, so you won't be seeing these thin layers that I'm currently working with. Just like this. It's fun how just making some simple stripes or little dots can make it seem like faint clouds. There we go. There we have it. maybe. I'm adding more dark at my corners. Just a little bit. So I'm darker at the top, at the corners, and then as you come towards the cottage, towards the center here, it becomes lighter. And right now it might not look like much, but it's going to be fun to see the effect that these tiny little dapply, dimpling things have towards the end. Here we go. I might add a little bit more on my ground as well. Don't have to make straight lines. It's a little bit of, just make wavy lines. Go a bit up, maybe go a bit down. Try to preserve a bit of the white and a bit of the yellow. And as you can see, since we're using the same gray in the sky as we do in the ground, it is because the snow is reflecting the sky color. And maybe it soon also will be reflecting a bit of green from the trees, these kind of things. But again, this is a very free stage part of the painting. You're just dapping in very gently some color here and there. Here we go. Something like that. I'm happy with it for now. I will dry this up and then we will go to the next phase, the next color. It is actually the next day. I had something come up yesterday, so I wasn't able to finish the painting, but we're back now and you didn't notice the time in between, so what does it matter? We are now going to do one more layer that we're going to cover the whole page with, because I am not liking that we still have a lot of white patches where the trees are at. We don't have like a good indication that we actually have a couple of trees here. So we're going to cover the whole painting again in water. We're going to make some puddles, and then we're going to do one last layer of just like sprinkling in the colors where we want them before we start working on the details and start really going into the painting, I would say. I really like this way of layering and just working my way forward, because it just gradually, the painting just gradually reveals itself to me. And I really like that. I feel like it takes the pressure off, instead of if I allow myself to think of the details right away and I'm like very locked in on how, I'm very locked in on how I want this to look. It just takes the joy out of it. It just takes the joy out of it for me, because I feel this pressure of, oh, it has to look a certain way. It has to become a certain way. This painting right here, I have my color palette in mind, I have my composition, but I don't really know what it's going to end up looking like. I don't even know if I'm going to like it, but that doesn't matter right now. What matters right now is that we're painting and we're trying to enjoy the process. So now we're going to mix some green puddles, 2 green puddles. We start with Hooker's green, which is like a cooler, very vibrant kind of green. So just make 2 little puddles. Make 2 little puddles of Hooker's green. One we're going to make a bit warmer, and the other we're going to make more muted and cooler. We're going to use the warm one to paint, or to use for the trees that are close to us. So these big trees on the sides here, they are close to us, meaning the colors will be more contrasty, will be warmer. And the trees that are here behind our little cottage will get the cooler colors, because it's further away. It takes the vibrancy out of the trees. And it's just a beautiful way to create depth in your paintings. So I'm kind of running out of space here. Oh, I can use this spot. So I'm just now again mixing 2 simple green using the same green color and making 2 puddles out of it. Once I have that, we're first going to make the warmer one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of black, because I find it slightly too vibrant in comparison to what I'd like this painting to look like. So a little bit of black. It also really darkens it up. If you find it gets too dark, just add more green. You can also add white if you like. I'm not the biggest fan of using white to light things up, because it also blends things out. The same does black. Black also kind of takes the vibrancy out of your colors. Here we go. And I might take a little bit of warm brown. I'm just going to dip that in there, not too much, because I just want to warm up my green. a little bit. And just play around with. Remember, you are not looking to get exactly the color that I am having here. You are trying to make your own little, or you're bringing your own inner world to life. So it's important to remember that you can create any color that you like. You can use any color that you like. And your green doesn't have to look exactly like mine. You can use other kinds of greens. It's completely up to you. You're completely free to paint this painting the way that you want. I'm just gonna make a little wet spot here so that I can have a look at what my green looks like on paper. And if I like how this green looks in comparison to the rest of my colors. And I think that looks pretty good. So I got my warm puddle. Now I'm going to be working on my cool puddle. And to do that, I have my Hooker's green like I had in the warm puddle, but for this one, I'm adding a bit of Prussian blue, just a little bit. Blue can be very overpowering, so I'm just like dabbing it in there. I'm just mixing that up. I'm looking for more of like a gray bluish color, but with a hint of green. Like it's a green, blue, darkish, grayish color. That's what I'm looking for. But again, if you want something different, that's completely up to you. Just if you like, I invite you to remember that the cooler tones go into the back, the warmer tones come at the front, just to create that depth in the end. I might add a little bit of black to it as well. And I just really enjoy the process of finding my colors. It's one of my favorite parts of painting with watercolor, or painting in general. It's like taking my time to mix and to try things out, to find that sweet spot of, oh, this is the color I want to use. It makes it sometimes a little bit hard because if I make my puddles too small, I have to recreate the color, and then it doesn't turn out exactly as I made the time before because I don't know the ratios. So that's like, yeah, that's the downside of doing it this way. But honestly, the freedom I find in approaching my colors this way is worth it. There we go. Let's see what I have. Still a bit too intense, I think. I want it to be more gray. So again, for the cool puddle, I have Hooker's green, I have black, and I have a bit of Prussian blue. And for my warm green, I have my Hooker's green, my warm brown, and a little bit of black. And that's how I mix things up. I think that's pretty decent. Maybe a little bit cooler. And just really, if you can, remember that this painting process, creating these little pieces right here, it's all about how we feel in the moment. If we can let go of the expectation that it needs to look a certain way, we can just really enjoy ourselves so much more. Like this painting comes to life for me as I paint. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. I just trust that if I keep slowly building up layers, I will eventually see how it's meant to be, and be able to navigate myself through the details and things that I'd like to get done for it to look in a way that feels warm and comfortable and that I'm happy with. But yeah, just try to do this without expectations. Have fun mixing your puddles and your paints. Just listen to the sounds of your brush on the paper, your brush in the colors, the feeling of mixing your colors on your palette. It's just, there's something so soothing in that, and it's such a beautiful invitation to tap into the present. It is really like encouraging you to just be here and to just enjoy the process. So I got my cold puddle and I got my warm puddle. Now I'm just going to activate my grays a little bit more, because like I said, we're going to be covering the whole page one more time in one big layer. Because I just want the background layer to feel a little bit more unified before we start looking at the details. Keep your puddles still very light. A little pigment, lots of water. We will work with denser and more pigmented petals later on. Right now, we're just keeping it light. We're still just working with the background here. But the background, at least for me, like makes everything. Especially with watercolor, it's just so, yeah, not important, or well, I have to say, like getting the background in place is so important for watercolor, I think, because it just gives you this beautiful foundation of everything else you add afterwards. But I guess that counts for every medium, so never mind. It's not just a watercolor thing. Okay, I got my colors. I also have a warm brown here, and I got my yellow, and I got a cooler brown. This is burnt sienna. And I will use the browns and the yellows for my cabin, for my cottage, and a little lantern here. Oh, my dog is waking up. Hey, buddy, what you doing? He was sleeping in front of the fireplace. Now he's had enough, apparently. Okay, so I got my colors. I'm going to wet my page one more time. I guess I can just do like this now. Let's see, so that you can see the painting. Whoop! A little bit better. Wrong way. There we go. Is that better? Like that? I would recommend that when you want to put water on your entire layer, when you want to put water on your entire piece of paper, make sure that your water, of course, is very clean, because you don't want to mix in. You don't want to accidentally get some green residue from your other brush onto your cottage. But also, when you put water on your page, it does pick up a little bit of the pigment that is already there. So start with adding the water to the white spots so that you don't accidentally drag the yellow or the dark onto places where you don't want it. Now, it's not such a big deal here because we're working with colors that kind of blend so well together already. But it's just something to keep in mind for if you want to paint with watercolors again. Just start by adding the clean water to the white places to preserve the white if that's important to you. So I'm just covering everything again in water, making it moist but not dripping wet. Let's see, does that look fairly, that looks okay. Just removing a little bit of it. There we go. Then I am going to start with my yellow once again, just because it feels a little less scary. Just take a bit of my yellow. One more time, I'm just going to emphasize the places where I might want it. Maybe a bit more in the sky. And then I'm also going to take a little bit of my cool gray, and I'm just going to add that into the corners of my sky as well, just to darken it a little bit. Not much, just to build the contrast. And maybe I want a bit more clouds, so just dip in some funky little things. Again, just let the paint, the watercolor, do its job. Just dab it in. Don't try to control it too much. Just let it play. Just let it float. To me, it seems like my sun is right there, so I'm just like making some overlapping clouds. Something like that. And then I want to take my cool green, dapping off any extra paint on my paper, and then I'm just going to work in the back here. So my cool trees are just here in the back. So the only thing I'm doing is having a little paint on my brush so it doesn't bleed out too much, and then I just, where approximately I think those trees I want to be, I just dab in that green. Just a little bit. Just adding in that color to indicate that we have some trees going on here. You can also make the tip of it, make it pointy, and then just gently work your way down towards the ground. If there's white left over, that's not a problem. Just add in a bit of green, the cool green. We're still working with the cool green here. And it's funny how you're like, there's literally almost nothing here, but just adding in that cool green in the background, it tricks your brain to think that there's something foresty there in the background. There is something going on. So you have that, and then I will take my warm green and I will just gently, I'm not filling it in like a consistent, not one even layer. I'm dapping it in still because I want to preserve some of the whites. I want it to be patchy, but I am following the shape of like a tree a little bit. So I'm just taking my brush, I put it on the middle of the tree, and then I fade it outward to give it the illusion that it's a, what are these? A Christmas tree. These are not Christmas trees, but I don't remember the type of tree that a Christmas tree is. Gran. What is that in English? I have no idea. So I'm just fading it out. You cannot do this wrong. Just make some funky little brush strokes here and there with your green. There we go. And like we have now the illusion of trees. It's just magical. And we're still working with such thin layers, but we get like an idea. Now that we have the warm color in, we're going to go back to a cooler puddle. And I, of course, have made way too little of it, so I need to mix it again. Taking my blue. I might even make this cooler puddle a little bit denser in pigment, because I want to avoid blooms here. I don't want it to start blooming. And remember what I said at the beginning, that if you want to avoid the blooms, make sure that the next layer of pigment that you put in here has more pigment in the puddle. So the consistency is a little bit thicker than the one that is now wet on the page. And so I'm just dipping off excess paint on my brush. And what I'm doing now is I'm thinking of my trees in the forefront here in sections. So I have like one section here, I have one section there, one section there. If this is confusing, have a little look at the sketch that we started out with, because you can see we have very distinct sections of the trees. And I'm also thinking about the shadow side. So on this side, the right side is the shadow side, meaning that the part of this tree is darker and cooler on this side than on this side. So what I'm doing now is I'm dapping in a little bit of cool green, very little, underneath each section, because the top section, or like the section above, is kind of creating a shadow. A bit of cooler color. And I do so also on the right side of the tree, because that's the shadow side. It's very important here, if you can, to preserve the yellows and the light green that you have going on as well. And there we go. We have something going on. I also see now that I don't have any like background colors here yet. That's too bright. I might be dapping in a little bit of gray sky in between. Just trying to fill up my white patches a little bit amongst the trees. There we go. Now I need more of my dark puddle, which again, I've already run out, so I need to make another puddle of that cooler green. And we're going to do the exact same thing on this tree now that we did on this tree. Just emphasizing your shadows with the cooler tones. So preserve the yellow and preserve the warm green. And just gently emphasize where you think the shadows of this tree are. The only problem I'm running into now, I don't know about you, is that my paper is drying up. So it doesn't blend as flowy as flowy, as floating. That's not the right word, but it doesn't blend as equally and elegantly as it did on the other trees. I'm just adding a bit more water, I think. I do run the risk of smudging around my colors too much, but we will now repeat this one more time. If you've dried your page entirely, make sure that everything is dry. We're gonna add some more color to our trees. One more layer on the trees before we finally move on to our cottage. So take your clean water, dab it on the place approximately where you think that your trees are. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just a little bit like this. And a little bit on that. You can also wait with the other side so that we don't end up with a very dry side here when we work. So start, I guess, with just making this side of the cottage and the trees wet. We'll work with that first. Just dab in your water. Something like that. If you look at it from an angle, you can usually see with like where it shines, where there's like a sheen on it, so that you know where you've placed your water or not. So you can be a little bit more accurate. So you can't see it, but I'm like looking sideways at my paper right now. There we go. And I have my puddles. I will go for a smaller brush this time, I think, but there's no need for that as long as you have a brush that has a round brush with a thin tip on the end. You will be completely fine. But since I have the option to use a smaller brush, I will. So once again, I'm starting with the cool one, the cool green. This is the green that I add in the background. The trees that are the furthest away from me. I still have a pretty thin. You might make a little bit of a thicker consistency with more pigment this time around, but still keep it very watery, especially for the trees in the background, because these will have little detail. They will be very faint. So you can make it a little bit darker, but not too dark. I'm not sure if these instructions are helping. It's pretty hard to guide yourself through a painting. I'm just gonna add in, again, just gently indicating that I have trees. Make sure that you have like a thin tip on the top, just to say that, hey, this is the top of a tree, right? One there. And actually do a little bit like that. And do a little bit like this. And just let the paint float down towards you. For me, I see that this one in the center here, this one seems to be in front of everybody else. So I'm adding a little bit more color to this tree right here to indicate that this is at the front and these ones are behind this one. Always remember that if you want to create that depth feeling, everything that is coming towards you is bigger than what is behind. Especially things that are supposedly the same size. So all these trees are approximately the same size, but to tell you, or to tell myself, to convince myself that this tree is at the front and these are at the back, I will make this one bigger, even though they're all the same size. The closer it gets, the bigger it gets. So there we have a little bit. And then I have here another tree. Just patching in some color. Don't have to make completely even layers because there's a lot of light and dark going on. We will emphasize all of this later when we're working on details. But right now, this is also just to indicate that we have some trees here. Like so. There we go. And then I have my big tree. So for my big tree, I need my warm puddle again, which I of course have forgotten to mix first. I can highly recommend to mix your puddles of color before you add water to your layer and start painting. You lose a lot of precious moist paper time if you have to mix your puddles after you've started painting. And I tend to make that mistake. But oh well, I have made it work so far, so I'll trust that I'll keep making it work. But it's just like a nice little reminder for myself. Please just make the puddles before you start painting or before you wet the page. Just please. Still mixing my my little warm puddle here. I think my trees by now have dried up, which is very inconvenient, but it's my own fault, so I'll just have to take it, I suppose. Let's see, what do I have here? That is too dark. I wanted more green. Something like that, I think. I think that works. Okay, so I'm afraid that this tree is a bit too wet right now, so I'm just going to add a bit more water. I'm still looking for everything to blend very evenly together. I will make these trees quite detailed later on, but that is a concern for them. Right now, I just want to indicate the existence of this tree with an even, beautiful layer. See, am I happy with that color? Yeah, that's pretty good. So again, I'm not making one smooth brush stroke. I'm kind of dapping in the color of the branches. Again, just indicating that there are branches here. But it doesn't have to look like a proper tree just yet. I'm getting a little bit of blooms, so I need to be careful because I didn't make my puddle dense enough, it seems. Again, the warm colors come on the right side now that we're working on the left side, because this is our light source. There we go. Something like that. And then I want to use my dark puddle to create some shadow. And since this tree that I'm currently working on is the one that is the closest to me, I will make sure that it also has the most contrast. It will have the most detail. It has the most contrast. And just play around. You can't do it wrong here. If your tree ends up looking like a broccoli, hey, then it's a broccoli tree. Then it's your beautiful broccoli tree. Don't worry about it. Again, try and see if you can just enjoy the feeling of the paint on the page, mixing your colors. Enjoy how the water flows. It's about the process, the peace that you get from it. The enjoyment to see white turn into all these beautiful colors. Something like that. I think I've gone a little bit too dark, but oh well. I'll take it. I'll take it. So I think I'll go over my trees here one more time. What I'll do now is I will not make this wet again. What I'll do instead is soak up my brush with a lot of paint and just, again, first indicating the branches and everything. So as you can see, I'm trying to preserve a little bit of the lighter green. I'm just adding it. I'm now kind of working wet on dry here, and then I'll take a clean brush and I'm just indicating the direction. Do you see the motion that I'm making? These like swift curves to indicate what's going on here. And then again, I use my cool puddle to highlight the shadows. Something like that. And then I would say that these trees right here are much fainter than the ones there. So I'm going over them, but with very little paint or very little pigment, just to emphasize. Something like that. I like that. I like it. And then we have one bigger tree, an even bigger tree here. So I need more of my cool puddle. This tree right here is definitely the furthest away from the light source compared to all the other trees. So it needs to be pretty cool and green. Just doing like that. Making these swoosh, swoosh, swoosh movements. Swooshy movements. I have a feeling that after I've made a couple of these videos, we have a completely new art language because I can't find the right words to describe things. The swoosh motion. This is the swoosh motion. Okay, there we go. Kind of the umbrella-like shape. Okay, there we have that. I am pretty happy with my trees right here. So the only thing I'm doing now is do the same thing on the other side. Make a little bit more detail and add a little bit more color to my trees here. Make it stand out a little bit more. And then we'll work on the cottage. At this point in the process, I did not realize that my microphone wasn't on anymore. So I am describing a whole lot of things that I, first of all, do not remember. And second, now have to try to remember. So I'll do my best, and I just hope that some of it makes sense. So basically what I'm doing here is I am working on the cottage. I started out with 2 paint puddles before I started on the cottage. So I made one warm brown puddle, very light, very watery, and one darker and more concentrated brown, a cooler brown that was a little bit more dense in pigment than the warmer one. So first I wet the cottage walls, but not the roof itself, because I didn't want any brown to accidentally bleed onto the roof, because the roof is just covered in snow. So let's try to keep that as white as possible, or like unaffected from the brown as possible. And when starting with the warm brown, I gently dab that color into the corners and the areas that are the furthest away from the light sources, which in this painting are the glowing windows. And as I moved closer to the windows, I let the brown softly fade into the yellow, and this is why I made the whole cottage wet at first, so that it could just like flow beautifully into the colors that were already there, versus if I'd done this wet on dry technique, meaning I'd gone with wet paint on a dry cottage, I wouldn't have had this nice blending effect. My main intention here was to give the cottage its warm brown color while keeping the brightness and glow around the windows intact. Once I was happy with that first layer, I moved on to my darker brown. And for this, I didn't wet the whole cottage first. I let it dry up a little bit. Also, the puddle of the dark brown was denser and I used it more sparingly. I applied it only where I imagined the light wouldn't quite reach. So on the parts of the walls furthest away from the windows, inside the doorway where the door sat slightly recessed into the wall, and in small creases like gaps between the wooden planks. So you can see that I made a couple of lines there trying to emphasize that there are planks, but but I also smudge out some of it. So I try to find a nice balance between smudging out my lines and keeping a few of the hard lines. These darker touches and playing around with smooth lines, smoothing things out, keeping some of the hard lines, it really makes the cabin feel more grounded and three-dimensional. Now for the snow, I am adding one more layer of gray just to like emphasize the shadows a little bit, kind of I use the color of the snow to show how it flows over the terrain, and then later when I add the white, it will just make it look more like snow. So for now I'm adding the color to emphasize how the ground is actually looking and how which directions it's going in, these kind of things, which direction my road is going in. And then you'll see the magic of white watercolor paint to like really bring the snow to life afterwards. It's kind of hard to describe until I'm actually doing that. Anyway, so I'm adding a little bit more gray here and there. I am focusing on the direction of my brush strokes. Along the sides of the cottage near the trees, I use gentle upward curving strokes to suggest that the cabin sits slightly above the road. The road itself, I switched to downward curves and like straighter lines to show that it lies below the higher snowbanks on either side. And these kind of small directional choices with my brush help give my landscape a sense of shape and a sense of elevation. And then, like I said, when we add our white later on, everything will just blend beautifully together to this snowy landscape with both depth and movement and interest and details. And I love it. I love this whole package, the whole thing that we're doing. So, okay, moving on. We have now a pretty solid base, I would say. And to me, this is like now the really exciting part begins, because I love bringing out the contrast in my paintings. I love building up the depth. I love working with my highlights and with my shadows and really just make things pop. So this will be our focus for the next step. Now the only thing I see right here is that I love this tree and I'm pretty satisfied with my trees in the back here, but I feel like this big tree, this giant right here, that is supposed to be at the most front of our painting, mine is a little bit dull. So what I'll be doing is just go over with one more layer with a bit of yellow, with a bit of warm green, and really bring out the contrast of this one, because right now my tree that is further back here has more detail than the one in the front, which can cause a bit of like a confusion for the eyes, since the things that are the closest to you have the most detail and the most contrast, and the things further back have less. So this just being a very vague tree is confusing my eyes. So I'm just gonna do what we've been doing with our trees until now, and I'm just gonna mix some more puddles of green and yeah, just keep on building my contrast, really. And so you also can take here the opportunity to look at your own trees. Are you happy with the contrast? Are you happy with your colors? Would you like to have more detail? Would you like to have less detail? Just observe a little bit. Whilst you do that, I am just going to fix my tree. I first need to activate my colors because, fun fact, it is once again another day. I have not been able to film this video in one sitting, but you don't know that, or now you do, but it's like, sometimes I am just not able of painting these tinier paintings in one sitting. Things get in the way, life gets in the way, and that's completely fine. I've been itching to be able to paint again though, so I'm really excited to sit here right now. You can also take a moment to just make yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, take a glass of wine, completely up to you, whilst I fix my tree. Just gonna mix up my colors right here. we've had for the last couple of days really, really cold days. I think that also kind of put me in a winter blues spot. We've been having like minus 26, almost minus 30 degrees days. And I just noticed that when it gets that cold, my body just shuts down. There is not much I want to do when every body part is just freezing. And there's no warm spot in the house except for the fireplace. Like, it's just the perfect invitation to go sit in front of it and not move away. So that's what I've been doing instead of painting. I'll admit that. But now today it's only minus 15. So at least I feel like I can just do a little bit more creative work, I suppose. But I guess this is just my little invitation to you that if the weather is really horrible, or life just feels heavy, please give yourself the permission to not do anything and let go of the expectation that you should be able to work through it. I think that's something that I still struggle a lot with. It's the feeling of that I have to push through when everything inside of me and my body is just screaming like, leave me alone. That's the sad part of like the hustle culture thing. And also I think it's a part of this 20s. Like I just turned 28 and I finally feel like I'm able to let go of all the expectations that the 20-year-old kids are having these days. But it does, of course, linger, and I feel behind, and I feel like I should be doing things, and I haven't had the usual upbringing and life evolvement, how do you call it, like the linear life that some people may have or that you expect people to have. I haven't had that. And it just brings so many annoying thoughts about that I'm not where I should be, that I always should be moving forward because, you know, everyone around me is they're getting their degrees now, they're getting their jobs, and I'm like here, oh, I'm just gonna paint a little painting. That's just me. And it's hard to let go of the thought that it's okay to just be there, to just be here, and that there's value in painting my little painting and live my little artist life quietly in the north and just try to spread a bit more love and a bit more joy through creativity. That's actually quite a nice thing to do. But yeah, when you start comparing yourself with the rest of the world, it feels like a failure, which sucks, but I'm working on it. And again, just if you feel similar in any way, know that your art and your life and the quiet things that you do, if it brings you joy, if it brings you peace, it's the most important thing you can do for yourself. Prioritize your own well-being. Because if you prioritize your own well-being, you feel better, and when you feel better, you usually naturally are kinder to the people around you. You are more conscious and more aware of the people around you. You can just be better for the people around you. And to me, I don't know about you, but to me that's important, that I can be the best version of myself to my inner circle, to my loved ones. I want to be a good fiancée. I want to be a good daughter. Not good in the sense of, oh, I'm doing the right things, but like I can give the love that I know and want to give. I hope that makes sense. But I want to be able to express my love fully. And I can't do that when I worry too much about the world and feel bad about myself for being behind and all these kind of things. So if you're kinder to yourself and respect yourself a little bit more, that will naturally ripple into the lives of others. In that way, we can just create a bit more love and a little bit more peace in our surroundings. I'm trying to figure out my tree here, but my puddle is a little bit too not dark enough, I think. Oh well. Adding in a bit more yellow. I'm just gonna keep working on my tree here until I feel comfortable with it. I'm not really working on the details of it yet. I just want like the base layer of it to have a bit more color. It's also easy to overdo it though, so I hope I don't do that. Something I also have to learn with art is that to know when to stop, when to not like overdo a layer and just let it be the way that it is. Because I have this like so long lived with this perfectionist mindset that keeps me going when things are actually good enough, and then when I keep working on that, like I keep working past the good enough phase, I just end up ruining it. So I hope I don't do that now. Art and creativity become so much more fun and enjoyable when you aim for the good enough. And when you see your little happy accidents and what you maybe before would have called mistakes, if you see them as your signature, that this is something that you've made, your human hands have made it, not AI, not someone who's been being professionally working on it for 30 years. No, this is just you. And the little things that you're the little things that you are unhappy with are actually a beautiful, beautiful little signature of that it's yours. And it makes it uniquely yours. So, if you can, keep that in mind. Now, you can see here, or I can see here, that my tree has like a weird shape going on over there. But I'm not going to get too upset about it. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to dry this up. I've gotten a bit more contrast, so that's good. And yeah, I think I'll just dry that up, and then we can start working on a bit more of our snow, I think. It's time to get this a bit wider, to get some white on it, and also to bring out a little bit more contrast in our little cottage. So I need my hair dryer. Going to be working on our cottage. We're going to bring out the details. We're going to get some more contrast, really work on the shadows here. So what I invite you to do, is make a really dark puddle of dark, cooler brown. Not your warm brown, but the cooler brown. Just make it really, this time really go for like a milky consistency of your puddle. And if you don't have a tiny brush, the only thing you need to think about is making sure that you don't have too much paint on your brush when you start making the details. And also try to keep like the tip of it. Oh, wait, oh, there we go. So, you know, if you have, for example, only this kind of a size, you can still get it really small. You can see like the tip of this is an 8 brush actually. It has a very tiny tip. So if you just don't put too much paint in it, don't soak it up too much, and brush it off on a little bit of paper before you get started, then you should be able to make pretty thin lines with it, even though you're working with an 8 brush. But if you have a smaller brush, maybe like a 4 or a 2 or a 0, that would be even more perfect. Wait, I'm having a hard time making it focus. Oh, come on. There we go. So this is a 3. I didn't know I had a 3 brush. I might actually be working with this one. I love these ones for tiny details. This is a number 4 brush. But as you may see in a moment when it focuses, it has this really long, these very long hairs, which are perfect for like straight lines and very teeny tiny details. I love it. But again, you don't need this, so don't freak out if you don't have the kind of brushes that I use. You can do this whole painting in one size 6 or a size 8 brush, or a size 4 for that matter. It's just if you notice that you enjoy painting it becomes even more fun when you have a little bit of supplies to choose from. Brush sizes, these kind of things. So I have mixed my very dark brown. To me it looks like, it's hard to see. How do it look? Maybe I can do it like this. I still have to like learn how to make good, there you go, that's my brown. Make like good angles and everything. So if there's anything you'd like for me to improve, if there's something that annoys you or you'd like to have differently when I make these kind of videos, feel free to let me know. I am just learning as I go. I've never made these kind of tutorial videos before, so it's like I just do what I think is okay, and then I hope for the best. Anyway, I got my dark brown. So now we're going to go back into our cottage. I want you to look at this big log that we have going on here. So with your very dark brown color, imagine that, you know, we have light coming from this window above and we have light coming from this window below, meaning that the top of this log and the bottom of this log have like slight highlights going on. But the center of it doesn't really catch any light. So what I'm going to do is make one straight line following the direction of the log, kind of in the middle, like so. Maybe make it a bit more stripy. Then I'm going to clean my brush. And I'm going to go over it with a clean brush and just like spread it out a little bit. But I'm also trying to keep some of my lights on the top of the log and the bottom of the log. Just going to do that again. I notice my brown isn't that dark actually, but just making a bit of stripes. If you feel like yours gets a little too dark, don't worry about it, because we're going to go over it with highlights later. I noticed that I got a bit too much dark color on it. So I'm trying to remove a little bit, but I'm also not worrying too much about it because I can go over with my highlights later. But just make sure that this little beam that we have going across our cottage here has a bit of nuance in color, so a bit of darker spots, a bit of lighter spots. Ideally, the top is lighter than the center and the bottom is lighter than the center, if you think about the light source, but I didn't really make it work. So if you're like me and the whole beam just got a little bit too dark, that's totally fine too, because we can fix it later. And again, we're just going for good enough, not perfect. Then I'm taking the same color and I'm going to look at the inside here of my door frame. So you already see I have a little layer of color here that's darker than the frame around the door. So I'm just going to darken this up even more, like the frame that is, it kind of goes, how do you explain this in English? Like this beam right here is on the outside of the house or the cottage, and this here, this dark spot here is like, it's an indentation into the walls before you reach the door. And I'm just going to darken that up even more. I'm not making it a solid one color. I'm making some stripes just to keep the details intact. Like so. And then what I'm also going to do is make a few darker stripes with that same color, just to like bring out the beams of the door, or the planks. Is that what I call it? The planks of the door a little bit. Like make it look like this door is made out of planks. Like so. And then taking again my clean brush with a little bit of water, and I'm just going to smudge some areas. I don't want too much detail. This cottage is still pretty far away, so just like smudging it a little bit, but not too much. And then I'm just going to look at my cottage, think of my light sources, and look at where can I add more dark? Where does the light not reach? So for example, it might be on this side of the beam. Doing a bit like that. Like so. And maybe I emphasize a few more of the planks. feel like that's a weird way to phrase it. I also have some beams that meet up right here. So I'm just gonna add a bit of dark around it. It doesn't really have to make sense. Like, this is just an illusion for the eye. So just dot in a bit of dark here and there. It just creates interest. If it feels overwhelming to think about where the light is coming from or not, where it should be dark, where it shouldn't be, you know what, just add a bit of dark here and there, wherever you feel like. See what it ends up with. This is your cottage. This is your little fantasy, cozy cottage. And if it looks a bit all over the place, then that's totally fine. We're not here to create realism or anything. We're just here to have a cozy painting session together. Maybe you're not even painting. Maybe you're just watching and hearing me babbling about all these things. Maybe none of it makes sense, but who cares? If we can manage to be a little bit calm and find some peace in the moment, then that's what matters. I have another beam under my window here. I'm adding a bit of dark at the bottom because there's no light that reaches that. Also here on the far edge. I like the wall on this side of my cottage is far away from the light. So I'm adding a bit of darker stuff there. Also on the ground, just emphasizing the bottom of my cottage. There's not a lot of light reaching that. There we go. And here, underneath the roof, there's not a lot of light there, so I'm also going over all my planks, not all of them, but just a few, like we did on the door. I'm just adding that in so that you have a bit of texture, a bit of structure, a bit of interest to look at. I think the most important part for you here is if you can keep a lot of the yellow, keep a lot of the light, try to just work with contrast here. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but if you can keep the contrast, it still makes it interesting to look at. This is probably not very professional advice, but I'm not a professional, so I can say whatever I want. So I'm just going to keep that in mind to myself. Like, I'm just a young woman who enjoys painting and would like to share the painting in the creative world with you without the pressure of having it be anything serious, or it can just be for fun. Again, just take your dark brown and just go over places that are further away from your light sources and add a bit of dark. And just see how the painting can come to life that way. If you don't think it's dark enough yet, it's totally fine. This is just, you can always go over with darker puddles later. And if you hear some weird noises, that's my belly because I'm hungry. There we go. I'm pretty happy with this for now, I think. I'm really just like, I can't really, that's why I'm not saying anything, because I'm just kind of following my instinct here of where to put the dark. And so I really invite you to just, if you have this like intrusive thought of this isn't good enough and this should look a certain way and I can't do that and I don't understand this, well then this is your invitation to like say shut up to that voice and say like, I just want to be at peace for a little while. And this painting right here is not about the result or anything. It is just about me finding a bit of calm and regulating my nervous system with some color. Find some ease in the moment. Try to enjoy the process of playing around with paint. Something like that. I think I'm keeping mine like this for now. Now I want to add the same, or like do the same process for my little lantern here. So again, I'm gonna look at my light source, look at which sides and which planes of this stand right here is away from the light or towards the light. So for example, the top of this is not getting a lot of light from the lantern itself. It might get a little bit of light from the cottage, but we're not going to worry about that for now because those are details we can add with our highlights in a moment. So I'm just like filling in the planes, like the top of this thing that is sticking out too. It's away from the light source of the lantern itself, so making it pretty dark. And so this thing that goes down here as well. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can just try to make the lines that I do. You don't have to know what you're doing. You can just try it out. See what happens. Maybe your happy little accidents might turn into something that you're happy with. And if not, it's a beautiful invitation to be kind to yourself and say, hey, I did my best. And I can always try again. Can always try again. Once I have that in place, I might be mixing a bit of my black. Taking a little bit of my black here because the top of my lantern needs a bit more. So I'm just gonna follow the shape and fill that in. You don't have to fill it in one like swatch, just make some lines that reach towards the top to make it look like it goes down. Like this is the top and it goes down here. It's like a, how do you call it? Like a curved lid? I'm not sure. But don't cover it completely in one color. Keep some light spots. And then I might do the same for the other lines here. But again, I'm also keeping some of the light. I'm not making it one color. There we go. Something like that. Now I want to start working on some snow. So what we're going to be doing, which I find very exciting, is we have our colors in place now, right? And we have kind of where the shadows are. We have a little bit of depth, but what we're going to be doing is take some white. We're going to take white watercolor. You can also use a white gouache. You can use it if you have a pen white. I'm going to be using from a tube because it makes it a little bit easier for me to make it denser, but you can achieve the same thickness. You just have to like take a lot of paint out of your white pan. But we're going to use this to layer on top of our colors. And the fun thing about that is you will still see the colors underneath, but it will be mixed with more white. And so it looks more like snow. I have no idea if that makes sense, but I'll show you in a minute. I think that's easier. So I'm just gonna mix my little puddle. You can see my palette right there. So I'm just adding white there. And I'm gonna make a pretty thick puddle of white. It's still liquid, it's still milky like, but it's quite thick. Just mixing that up. like so. And then I'm going to go over everything. But the part where I didn't have my microphone. Oh shoot, I have a green spot in the sky. Oh no, we have a green star. I don't want that, but there's not a lot I can do with it. So, but anyway, what I wanted to explain to you in the part where I didn't have a microphone is that the parts where we know we go kind of uphill, we make upward curved strokes. And this little road here that is like an indentation in the snow, we have downward strokes to make it look like it goes down. So, making my downward strokes, I'm really just brushing it in wherever I feel like. I'm even going over my yellow because it will show through. Just making that. And I'm gonna go up on places. Make sure that you also have your spots where you can still see the original color underneath, but just brush on some white. Just brush it on, wherever you feel like. Trying to find a gentle little rhythm. Don't overthink it. Just add it in there. Don't need to put it on the trees yet. We're going to work on the trees in a minute. For now, just add it on your road. Add it on your ground, or what do you call it? And then cleaning my brush when I have a bit of that white. And once again, with a clean brush, a moist clean brush, I'm just going to smudge it out a little bit so that it blends in better with the layer underneath. So for now, I'm just playing around with my puddles, making my white puddles as I need them, but I'm just covering everything in a layer of snow, basically. You really don't need much for the cabin either, or for the cottage. I don't know if I should call it a cabin or a cottage. It's like, I guess there's a difference between British and American, or maybe it's more of the, like a cottage is a different kind of building than a cabin. I don't know. Do you know? I'd love to know. Also, if you hear weird noises, that's my coffee machine. I have a lot of weird noises going on in the background when I paint, apparently. But yeah, I'm just dapping in my heaps of snow here. Some of the puddles some of the white puddles are a little bit yellow, some are more white. I'm just adding that in. Also over my snowy banks thingies here, just to create interest, to create detail. Now the important part is if you want like a heap of snow here in the corner, for example, and say it's in real life, it's the same size as the one that's by the cottage. The size here needs to be bigger because the cottage is further away. So everything moving away from you is smaller than things that are coming towards you or things that are closer to you. So say this snowy, hobbly thing that I have here is the same size as the one in the cottage. I still need to make it bigger because it is closer to me. So I'm just having some fun making some snowy things. Not really caring where it ends up. I can always emphasize shadows and things later on, but for now, I'm just enjoying adding in my whites here and there. Working on my little road here. And you see how all the colors, even though we're working with white paint, it's still very transparent. So you see all the layers that you put before it, you still see it underneath. So for this, like specifically, I would recommend to get yourself a tube of white paint at some point if you don't have it, just because it can give you a denser consistency, so you can get like a more intense white than if you're working with tiny pans. Even tiny pans work too, absolutely, but just to save yourself some mixing, a lot of mixing, it's easier to buy the tubes. You can see here, I'm just literally dabbing it in. I don't really care where it goes. I will put it on my tree soon enough as well. But again, I do keep in mind that everything that goes towards my road is curved downwards, and everything on my road is either straight or curving upwards. We can add snow on our big beam here, just a little bit. Just had a bit of snow that scattered on top of it. Maybe a bit on the windowsill here as well, on the top of the window beam thingy that we have going on. Just add snow literally wherever you'd like it to be. Every place where you think some snow might gather. Just add it. Snow can find the weirdest of places to land, so you literally, again, cannot do this wrong. I really want to like cake in my cottage here with snow. And then I just picture myself being in this cottage, drinking hot chocolate, reading in front of the fireplace. There's nobody here. This is my little safe place. This is my world of calm and quiet. Nobody can disturb me if I don't want to. And I just live here for a while, in this little dreamy place of mine. Forget about the world. Forget about all the horrible things that are going on. Not to mention that there are a whole lot of good things going on as well, but they're not very good at sharing the good stuff in the news, are they? Or on social media, so sometimes it's better to just step away from the news and from the world and find the joy and the beauty in the little things that are actually present in your life, that are actually right outside your door, or something that you can see really with your eyes. There we go. I'm just having a lot of fun making this as snowy as I want. Dabbing it in. Now I do think our trees deserve some snow as well. So what I'm going to do then is actually the same thing. There's not really much of a change to it, but I can make another puddle of white. I'm going to choose a bigger brush, water it out. And just again kind of see the, what do you call it? The direction of your branches. They're going like a upward curve, right? So we're just going to dab in uneven lines. I'm really going to be very free with this. Not make such a big deal out of it. Just add my snow. Can be a bit heaped. Just keeping my snow at the edge of my branches so that we have enough darkness at the back here, just to bring out the contrast, maybe. Just really trying to keep that rounded shape of, what are these trees called again? I always lose the English word for them. Granträd, the Norwegian word, but that's not helping you. Well, these kind of trees, they especially in paintings, you have this like typical classical upward shape that we're trying to preserve, which kind of gives them the, which is the telltale of what kind of tree this is. There we go. I think I'm happier with that than what I had before. I'm gonna mix another white puddle with a little bit of yellow. Oh, that's a lot of yellow, but oh well. Dab it on there. That's a bit much. Today I have learned that, because I've never used this Rembrandt Chinese white before, and I have today learned that it's very dense in color. It's much less transparent than the whites I've been working with before. So I'm learning my ratios here to not take too much of it, because it covers my painting more than I like. So I'm going to water it out a little bit. Just add it on there, where I think the light from the cottage might hit it. Something like that. Something like that. Then I just invite you, because we're moving towards the end of the painting here, and we're just looking for details now. We're just having fun emphasizing the contrast and making things a little darker, a little lighter, wherever we feel like. No right, no wrong. So here we go. Just going to use the same technique that I did at the end here, just gently, randomly. Adding white to my tree in the back here. With the upward, everything curves upward. That's like the telltale of the granträd. No, my puddle was a little bit not opaque enough, so more white. And it's just like, I think this is the part of the painting process that I like the most, because just I can stay here for hours, that I just look for the details, add color, take away color, change color wherever need be. And it's just very calming. If you don't get swept away by, if you're annoyed with things, or if you're unhappy with things, don't let it get to you too much, because it takes away the most important part, which is just being here and enjoying this. And emphasizing my downward curved strokes on the snowy banks here, because I want it to look like it's going. Like my little path here is at the bottom, and everything else kind of rises above it. Now, one thing we can still do, or several things we can still do, but I think it's about time we end this painting soon, because I've been doing this for a long time. I'm curious to see how much time I ended up spending on this. I'm going to be making a cool gray puddle again. Remember, the cool gray was a bit of Prussian blue, some white, and some black. Make it pretty dark if you can, because we're just going to add some shadows under the tree, on the trees. So here you go. I'm working with something like this. This is my dark gray. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I can make it even darker. I'm going to make it even darker. Something like that. Something like this. A cool, almost black kind of gray. Then I'm going to take my big brush. Take it, and underneath here, I'm going to make, really just like emphasize the ground underneath my tree. It's almost not dark enough. I really want it dark. This is like one of the darkest areas of the painting. It's underneath the tree right here. I'm just going to smudge that up, blend it into the snow. I also feel like my road is disappearing a little bit, so I think what I'll do is take a bit of brown. Take a bit of brown, add that into my puddle. Now I want my warmish brown. I'm just going to emphasize like the edge of where my heightened, what do you call it? This part where it meets the ground. And I'm making it dark because the light doesn't reach this edge right here. Maybe dragging out the lines a little bit. Just refining my path so that we can see that there is a path here. Taking a clean brush, mushing it out, blending it into my snow, because the snow doesn't really have any edges. Oh, I've also lost my path that I had going towards the door. Oh well, no path. Then I'm gonna I'm gonna make one more warm gray puddle. Yeah, I don't really know if this is helpful to anyone because honestly, I am talking myself through my own process and I don't, how do you say it? I'm not just thinking about it instructionally. I'm just taking you from one thought to the other. And I'm not sure if it's hard to follow along or if it makes sense to anyone. But again, I have some time to learn, I hope. This is just my second Traveler's Canvas video, so I'll give myself some slack. I'll learn. I'll figure out how to make better instructional videos. For now, this is what I'm capable of. Making a warm gray puddle, because I feel right now that like you can't really see. I need something here to distinguish. Something like that. Because you weren't really seeing the road anymore. Because I had the road was too white and this was too white, so it kind of blended too much into each other. I'm also adding a bit more gray into my road, I think. Because it doesn't capture as much light as everything else. Smudging everything out. Emphasizing some terrain changes here. Also making it a bit darker under this tree back here. So carry some shadow. Here maybe. And I think I'll go over with one more layer of white after, because I feel like there's too much gray involved in my painting right now. I want it to be whiter, but I am using the gray first because I know that the gray will shine through. When I put over the white, you will still see it through the white. So I've managed to like create the shadows that I need in order to emphasize my terrain and surroundings, while still be able to make it look snowy and pretty. I'm pretty happy with that. I like this. So I think we have two more things to do. One is adding our last bit of layer with white, and then we're going to add some snow, like the sprinkly, like the magical floaty snow that comes when everything is peaceful and calm. There's no wind, there's no storm, no nothing. It's just the snow gently falling. You can't hear it, but you can see it, and it's just beautiful snowflakes, these crystal snowflakes in the warm evening light from your windows, from your lanterns. It's the most peaceful thing. And you can just be here right now. We can just be here and enjoy this moment of our quiet and calm world. And you can stay here for as long as you like. This is your precious place. So I'm going to mix one more white puddle to add my last bit of detail. And my last mix. Let's see. So now I'm making my thickest white puddle yet, because now I really want things to be as white as they can get where I put it. So I'm putting some on my lantern. Oh, that's very thick now. Like literally, it's almost acrylic now. That's too thick. Emphasizing that it goes downhill for me here. And covering my little lantern in some snow. I might even take some white and put that inside my lantern, because the inside of the lantern where the light source is, that's the lightest part of the light source. It's like really at the center of it, so it's basically white. So I'm just adding in a bit of white here. There we go. And let's see, adding it on my little banks that are snowy banks that are reaching the road. Adding white to the snow that is covering my cottage. I'm really just making everything whiter wherever I feel like. If you don't want to make things whiter, you don't. That's completely up to you. Doesn't have to look realistic, not at all. Just try to enjoy it. Just try to have fun with it. I'm pretty happy with that, I think. I think I'm liking it. So, last thing. What we're going to do is make one last puddle of white. Make sure it's really pristine white. Let's see, do I still have space for some pristine white? Because I've gotten my colors all over the place here. I always paint messily. Like it's always just a complete mess, and my palette is covered in colors. But I love that. I will always remain a messy painter. but that's like half the joy of it, all the mess you're freely allowed to make. So I'm gonna water out that last white puddle right here. Make it pretty watery, make it milky-like consistency, okay? Milky. And then, watch this. We're just gonna add in, you can do this with your finger too. We're just gonna really cover it all in these beautiful little snowflakes. You can make as much or as little as you like. Let's see, I need some more paint for this. Once again, I made a puddle that was too little. I need to remember that, to make bigger puddles for myself so I don't have to keep remaking them. There we go. Okay, just gonna sploosh that in there to the best of my ability. I like a lot of it, but it's completely up to you how much you want. I also have my green dot here, so instead of having it green, I can turn it into a snowflake. There we go. Now it's not green, now it's a white snowflake. That's way better. And there we have it. I think that's enough. Yay, we're done. I hope you enjoyed this little snowy painting process today, whether you painted along with me or just simply watched and listened. If you did follow along and you would like to share your little painting, you are very welcome to tag IMOVARA on Instagram, and I will see that and I can share your beautiful piece. And if that feels a little bit too daunting, we also have our very lovely and cozy Discord community with wonderful fellow travelers who will welcome you with open arms. This is just the perfect little safe and comfy place, creative place for your inner child, for healing, for growth, for connection, and yeah, a cozy community. If IMOVARA feels like a place you'd like to return to, I invite you to become a Traveler of Worlds and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you have a like to give, that would mean so much. Honestly, all the encouragement I can get through likes and God knows what, it just makes me really happy. Take care, create with joy, remember to be kind to yourself and patient with yourself, and sprinkle in a bit of love when you can. I send you the biggest of hugs, and I'll see you again very, very soon.